No, we don't have time for an intro. The main point of this run is to not use left and right. I also won't use any camera related controls. The directional inputs are based on the direction of the camera, so moving the camera at will is essentially just a replacement for using left and right. We also ban moving backwards as that causes Spyro to turn around. Charging and gliding are not based on the direction of the camera, but rather the direction that Spyro is facing, so the backwards control really isn't appropriate for this run. That leaves us with moving forward, charging, and rolling. This challenge run probably would not be possible if it weren't for one crucial detail. If you charge or glide into a wall at a sufficiently shallow angle, Spyro will be forced to turn parallel to that wall. So, here we are in Glimmer after being kidnapped. With all that was said before, I shouldn't need to explain too much about Glimmer, so let's just skip to the interesting bits. Moneybags wants 100 gems and I oblige. Gems aren't really going to be much of a problem in this run. And then this guy gives us a talisman for no real reason. We really did not do much at all. Gem lamps will go back out after being on for enough time. Spyro can't move fast enough to keep them all on at once, so we're already down 2 orbs. With the right positioning, you can hit all of the lizards without using camera aim, all except the last one who is privy to our weaknesses. No orbs collected in Glimmer. Well, that's a great start. Before I go into Colossus and Idle Springs, I'd first like to show how to get into both of those portals. You can kind of jump to the side by rolling, charging, and then jumping. This is a little trick that we'll be using a lot. Here, talking to Zoe causes my camera angle to change. Involuntary angle changes like this are allowed and happen quite a bit. So there you go. Both of these portals can be reached with no issues. Before we go into them though, let's talk to Hunter. This is the game's tutorial for gliding. All we have to do is make a few jumps. The jumps are arranged in a sort of circular path, which usually would be a problem for us given the no steering limitation, but since we talk to Hunter after every single jump, he ends up forcing the camera angle to change. Yay! We collected an orb. The main path through Colossus is basically what you would expect, so we'll go through this very quickly. Corners can sometimes act like walls being hit at an angle. My theory is that the game is averaging out the angle of collision of the 2 walls to 45 degrees. We don't really know for sure though. Outward corners can also be used to turn Spyro, but they require a lot more precision. Spyro has, like, no maneuverability on ice, so we're only going to get one orb in Colossus.
Use your left stick to move around the surface. Use the charge button to dive underwater. Use the jump button to paddle, and charge button to charge.
Yeah, okay, buddy, but you see, you're a bear and I'm a dragon, so how would you know how a dragon is supposed to swim? As far as I'm aware, you've never even seen a dragon in your life Okay, note to self. The bear knows something I don't. Idle Springs is very easy to move through. I think by now you've seen enough of the basic movement to understand how that works, so let's just skip ahead. The Hula Girl orb is impossible. The path that we have to supercharge on is simply not within our capabilities. Even if you charge them all one by one, it won't matter. The big guy just kind of swats them away after a few seconds. So there's a problem with swimming. You can go down, but you can't get back up. I decided that I will allow backwards movement, but only when underwater. Moving backwards underwater is special in that it doesn't make Spyro turn around. I consider this okay because the intended premise of this challenge run is no steering. And now to jump on some squares. Why couldn't this guy just do it himself? On the second puzzle, I only saw a single red fish, which I guess is cool, otherwise completely uneventful. The last puzzle is also pretty easy, the only hard part being trying to understand how Insomniac could have thought this was a good puzzle. So now we'll do that same maneuver again where we swim down into the tunnel and then back up to the surface. The rest of the portals are easy to reach. To make this jump, you need to be angled just right. If you're too far to the left or right, it won't work. I have nothing to say about Hurricos, it's very straightforward. If I could speed this up any faster I would, but my $400 piece of software does not let me. To get any of the orbs in Hurricos, you have to destroy these two windmills. Doing that would require us to turn while supercharging. The only interesting part of Sunny Beach was when I had to restart it because I flamed the wrong thing first. Two of the orbs are inaccessible because I can't climb yet, and the last one is theoretically possible, but it's too difficult for me to bother trying. So just to reiterate, the directional inputs are based on the direction of the camera, and when charging underwater, the camera gets angled slightly upwards. This is exploitable. By holding down backwards and then tapping charge, you can make Spyro sink. This is good because the wall behind us will push us to the right instead of the left when we back up into it, but only if you're touching the lower part of it. The reverse is also true. If you hold down forward immediately after you stop charging, you'll move upwards. There are some little notches in the floor that Spyro can get stuck on, but we can get around them by doing some more charging stuff. I seriously don't know how to introduce Crush, so, Crush. The good thing about boss battles is that the camera will always turn to face the boss, so I never have to worry about moving past them and soft-locking myself. It was kind of hard to get in range of Crush while he was vulnerable, but it wasn't a big deal. He went down first try. Crystal Glacier requires you to flame a lot of things. If you don't flame them in the right order, you can put yourself in an unwinnable position.
Hello there, Spyro. Thank you.
The Draclet Orb is not at all possible, but somehow this one is. Skelos Badlands is another trivial talisman.
Excellent. You made it through.
Zephyr has some cannons that you need to use in order to break down some things in order to progress. You can see why I don't want to do this. So it's really not apparent in this test footage, but if the game is running at a lower frame rate, Spyro jumps a bit higher. If you use an external program such as RivaTuner to put the frame rate even lower than 30, Spyro jumps even higher. How low exactly? Oh, just 2 FPS. Anything lower won't have any effect. So, we set the FPS to 2 and then jump. I was trying to get into the tunnel that you just saw me pass. Luckily, I just barely made it into this other tunnel. If I didn't make it, I would have had to exit the level entirely and start again. Also, fortunately this tunnel is not very far off from where I wanted to go anyway. So here I accidentally get myself into the wrong place. I could have been stuck here, but luckily I found that I could charge into this box to push myself backwards just a little bit.
Wow! What an explosion! It sure is a good thing I had my helmet on. Oh yeah, the Colonel wanted me to give this talisman to you if you got through the breeze builder defenses. Good job, soldier!
So, funny thing about Breeze Harbor, they expected that you might find a way to go from the start of the level to the end of the level as shown here, so they put an invisible wall here, but not here. There's a fireplace on either side of this ship, and we have to light up both of them in order to power the ship to get to the end of the level. And that's where this little fucker comes in. He will run around the ship and put the fires out before we can stop him. You're supposed to kill him, but we can't. So we do this instead. Having bought the ability to climb, we'll now climb up this wall and get this orb.
Your friends will make a very good suit.
And then we'll go and charge along this wall to get our 8th orb. Everything else in this homeworld is easy to reach. So now we're going to help 2 children blow up a castle for no stated reason. Why would Spyro help them instead of like the inhabitants of this world? Does Spyro just help whoever talks to him first? Apparently so. Oh yeah, and we're going to steal some kind of artifact from them, because that's cool to do. What's that? You need 8 orbs? What a coincidence. I have 8 orbs. And not 9 because I did 1 more orb than I was supposed to. Numbers are hard, leave me alone. So we're going to have to use left and right movement on these ladders. I can understand if you don't want me to do this, but the alternatives are not good either. There are several different out-of-bounds skips that you can do to skip over these ladders, but all of them are impossible given the no steering rule. There's a glitch called level storage that we could use to give Spyro infinite flight, but we can't do that at this point in the game because we don't have access to Gulp. We cannot access Gulp until we collect all 14 talismans. I could perform the glitch on another save file that already has access to Gulp, which would mean the infinite flight would then transfer over into this save file, but that would mean that I would be disobeying the no steering rule on that save file. Yeah, the choice is pretty obvious. Shady Oasis is very straightforward. The only interesting bit was when I did an FPS jump instead of getting the rock to hit this tree. In order to understand what I'm about to do, you need to see the future.
Well, nobody said Ripto was brave. He's locked himself behind this door. The professor thinks that only a very large collection of orbs will open it.
We need to collect 40 orbs in order to fight Ripto. That ain't happening. Remember when I mentioned that glitch called level storage? That just went from impossible to required. Of course, that's not going to go down the normal way because of the no steering rule. Here is my crackpot idea that I cobbled together from 3 different YouTube videos. First, we're going to buy Icy Speedway. We don't need to complete it, but we do need to access it. Then we glide along this wall because we want the camera to be at a certain angle. You'll understand why in a moment. Then we're going to enter Gulp's Overlook and pause on the exact frame that we enter the hole. The game says we're in Gulp's Overlook, but we're clearly still in Autumn Plains. Nevertheless, we can choose to exit to Autumn Plains. This will cause the game to put us outside the portal for Icy Speedway, but with 2 minor caveats. First, the camera will be positioned like this. I know this is the case because this is the same camera angle that I had when I entered Gulp. The camera angle that you have there is the same camera angle that you have here. Secondly, the entire time this is going on, Gulp's intro cutscene is going to prevent us from actually seeing what's happening. All of the footage in this next part is actually just a reenactment. Then we enter Icy Speedway by moving forward, rolling 3 times, and then moving forward again. Then we spam this monstrosity of a control to drop into the water below instantly, giving us the retry option. We select retry, and then quickly skip whatever is left of the Gulp cutscene. Now we'll be in Gulp's Overlook, and everything looks normal until we let Gulp kill us. We've made the game think that we're in a flight level when we really aren't, so now we can fly around whenever we want, and we can supercharge freely. To kill Gulp, we're just going to supercharge into him until he just randomly dies. Since we now have access to Winter Tundra, we can warp to it using these things. So because the game thinks we're in a flight level, we have to deal with this 30-second timer. When that timer runs out, we fail the level and we're given the option to retry. So we're going to enter Winter Tundra right as we fail and then hit retry. Long story short, all of the dynamic objects in Winter Tundra have now moved far, far away. Now that 30-second timer becomes an issue because we are definitely not going to beat Ripto in 30 seconds. To get rid of the timer, I'm going to use the guidebook to go back to Icy Speedway and then come back to Ripto's arena. This will also cancel the flying and supercharge powers, but those aren't really needed. Fighting Ripto is definitely the hardest part of this entire run. As usual, the camera will turn to face Ripto, so we don't have to worry about that, but we still have a mobility issue. Because we can't steer, Ripto can often reach orbs much faster than we would like, and when we do get power-ups, it can be hard to make use of them since Ripto will constantly run around. Here I only get a single hit on Ripto. Anything more than that and I would consider it lucky. Ripto gets a red power-up and I just jump over the fire. I get a red power-up, but I can only manage to get one hit in before he runs away. Ripto gets a blue power-up and I just run away from it. I get a blue power-up and again can only manage to get a single hit. Me and Ripto get greens at the same time, and I can manage to get in 4 hits because he's constantly trying to go back to the same spot. Ripto gets green again and I dodge it again. I get a green and barely hit him one more time. Phase 2 Ripto is easier for some reason. He hesitates before picking up orbs, and when you have a power-up, you can stun lock him. Why? Well anyway, Ripto gets a green power-up and it hits me because literally what the hell is this? I get a blue power-up and hit Ripto twice, which for phase 2 I would only consider to be okay. Ripto has hit me enough times that Sparks is now green. While he gets a red power-up, I heal. GG Activision, I get another blue and hit Ripto 4 times. With one more hit, we go to phase 3. Somehow it never came up before, so let's talk about flight controls. Rolling left makes you do a 180. Rolling right makes you do a loop. Jumping makes you do this little flap thing that makes you move up slightly. And that's pretty much all there is to know. Ripto will circle the arena while I can only move back and forth in a straight line. After hitting 2 well-timed shots, he changes his tactics. So here's what the arena looks like, and this is the path that I can fly on. Ripto will now perform a 200 IQ move of just sitting in this spot here, until we either hit him or get too close. Well, fuck you then. If you flap at the end of a 180, you can just randomly turn a little bit. For his last 2 hits, Ripto will go back to flying in a circle, but this time partially out of bounds. I decided that the best strategy was to try to hit him right as he's coming back in bounds, since that's kind of the best time to hit him when you're playing normally. Ripto will also be flying very high, so high that I thought it wasn't actually possible to reach his height. Turns out if you try to flap while you're too close to the height limit, it just doesn't move you at all. It won't give you like a partial flap or anything like that. Point is, in order to hit him, I do loops to aim fireballs upward. If you made it this far, holy crap, thank you. If you want to see more Spyro content, I've also done this challenge run in Spyro 1, and at some point in the future I'll be doing it in Year of the Dragon too. Other than that, my channel is only about Half-Life, so sorry. And that's it for this video, but not before I thank my YouTube channel members, who generate me $14 a month that I put towards nefarious causes. Lucia Lambda, John Davis, Razion, Flimbo, and Griffin.